Daddy. That's what she yelled when she slammed into my waist in the middle of a hot, noisy junction, arms like a vice face streaked with dust and tears, and for half a second the city went quiet like it was holding its breath. If it were you, what would you have done? Push her away, laugh it off, pretend you didn't hear, or stand there like I did, stiff in a navy suit, praying she'd picked the wrong man and terrified she hadn't. My name is Leo, the papers like to say, self-made. They talk about an engine I designed in a cramped dorm room. They list the buildings, the oil blocks, the fund that moves more in a week than my hometown market sees all year. They draw a clean line from hungry genius to private jets. But life isn't a clean line. It's a back road after the rain, potholes and wrong turns, and that one moment you swear you'll never talk about. You know what I mean? We'd pulled up to Silverline Junction, like we always do, black SUVs, engineers with clipboards, security scanning poles and wires like they could count risk with their eyes. I stepped out, and the heat slapped me. Traffic groaned, vendors called, a woman argued with a bus, like it owed her child support. I was asking my site lead about setback from the road when I heard it. Small feet hitting asphalt. Then a voice, "Daddy, Daddy, please help me," and a market woman right behind her, swinging a long stick like she'd been waiting all week to use it. Instinct kicked in. I moved in front of the kid, palm out. "Madam, what happened?" And she unloaded broken egg, disrespect warning, ignored money, owed her voice thick with a kind of tired that doesn't sleep off. I could have argued I didn't sometimes. Speed is mercy. I told my driver to bring cash. The bundle looked absurd. In that light, 100,000 for a single cracked egg. I handed it over just to end the storm. Then the girl pulled back, planted her little feet, put her hands on her hips like she owned a block I just bought, and said, "Sir, I mean Daddy, balance." I blinked. She didn't. She said, 6,000. You gave 100. Are we not collecting change, or is it golden egg? She asked, head tilted, eyes sharp like a razor. You hide in your sock. One of my engineers coughed into his fist to hide a laugh. A guard stared at the sky like God needed to be tagged in. I crouched to her level and asked the oldest question. "What's your name?" "Daisy," she said. "And I'm 7, but don't talk to me like a baby. I'm a hustler. I have bills." Before you roll your eyes at the words hustler and 7 in one sentence, ask yourself what you were doing at 7. Cartoons and juice boxes, right? So yeah, that line stung. I made a mistake. Then I asked where her parents were with that polished tone rich men use without hearing it, and she stomped her foot. Jaw set. Don't talk about my mommy like that. Don't you dare. She's good. She's trying. She's beautiful. She's smart. And I felt it, that cold sheet of regret sliding down my back, because the word daddy was still hanging in the air, and I had history I'd buried under concrete and deadlines. She thanked me for pretending, adjusted her cracked slippers, picked up her bowl, and marched off into the crowd like a tiny queen in rags. Pattern interrupt. Silence in my head, and Lagos doesn't do silence. I tried to work. I really did, but every question my team asked sounded like it was underwater. Every answer I gave felt pre-recorded, and that night I lay in a dark room counting ceiling lines and hearing one word over and over until it lost shape. Daddy. Years earlier, when I was broke and impossible and faithful to nothing but the idea of building something the world would have to notice, my girlfriend Faith told me she was pregnant. I said words I can't take back. I pushed cash at a life like it was a bill. I never ordered. I chose the prototype over the person and walked away. Yeah, that happened. Later, when money made me loud to the world and quiet to myself, I went looking. Friends, socials, professors, hallways that still smelled like instant noodles. She was gone, and the past is very good at hiding, when you chase it with a black car. At 5 a.m., I gave up pretending to sleep, pulled on a plain polo like fabric can make a man smaller, and told my driver to take me back to Silverline. Morning hits the market different, smoke, low, practical voices, the city stretching its shoulders. Daisy sat by a corner with a cracked bowl, watching people like she was pricing them, chin high. Eyes brighter than her dress, I stepped close and she narrowed her eyes. Are you trying to kidnap me because we don't have kidnap money? Please go quietly. I laughed because what else do you do when a 7-year-old reads you like an annual report? I said I came to check on her, she said. I was blocking business that rich faces scare away potential clients, that school does ABC, while the road does cash. Let's be realistic, she said, like a tiny CFO. Do you think that's fair? I gave her money again, more than I should have, and she counted it faster than half the analysts I've fired lips. Moving head bobbing. She nodded. Told me no transfers, strictly cash. Gave me our working hours, 6 to 4, no public holidays, then marched off to hustle. On the drive back, I called my investigator. Follow her discreetly. Find her house, don't spook her. Call me first. Then I lived the longest week of my very expensive life. Contracts tasted like chalk. Meetings felt like reruns at night. I'd close my eyes and hear a small voice barging into a big space it had no permission to enter. Daddy. Dusk was bleeding into the clouds. When my phone rang, we found her, he said. Makoko, inner part mother only. No man, neighbors say. Mom's been very sick. I didn't send a car. I went plain clothes. No convoy. The street was narrow and honest. Tin roofs, rusty as old coins. Smoke curling from cooking sheds. A boy kicking a tape ball, like it could turn into a miracle. If he aimed right, we stopped at a weathered door with peeling paint. I knocked. A familiar voice, thin but steady, asked who was there. The door opened, and I forgot to breathe. Faith. You ever see a ghost and realize the ghost is scared of you too? That stillness that comes before breaking. We said each other's names at the same time, then her eyes rolled and she folded. I caught her, shouted for the car, the road, the world to move, and everything moved. In the hospital, bright white walls and machines that beep politely. A doctor said the words I still hear at some red lights: early stage intestinal cancer, treatable, but she's malnourished, no meds, body weakening. Do everything I said, and money made that part easy, but guilt made it heavy. I sat by her bed while she slept, watched the curve of her cheekbones, and the way her lip cracked from being too dry for too long, asked the room. What happened to you? The room didn't answer. She woke like a swimmer breaking the surface, blinked, saw me, and fury arrived with her breath. What are you doing here? Why are you in my life again? She asked, and I took it. I told her about Silverline, about Daisy, about the word that knocked me sideways. Told her I couldn't walk away this time. Told her I made the wrong choice then, and I've felt the burn ever since. She turned to the wall and said, "We don't need your help, we survived. And if you think money should buy forgiveness, you haven't met pride wearing scars like armor. Do you think that's fair or exactly right?" I couldn't sit, couldn't stand, so I paced, and another fear showed up, different and sharper. Daisy. Where would she go after school? Who would unlock that tired door? Who would tell her it's okay to be 7? I drove back to the compound and waited like a man on trial seats for the verdict. She walked in humming, saw me, and bristled. "Are you following me now?" she said. I kneel without thinking. "Your mom collapsed. She's in the hospital. Let me take you." She did what strong kids do when strength meets a wall. She broke tears like a flood that finally found the low place. She yelled at me, asked what I said to her. Mom blamed me, and that spear landed where it was aimed. I cried too, not dramatic, just a quiet leak you can't swallow. She squinted. "Mister, Are you crying? Is it pepper in your eyes? And I laughed through it because children can find a light switch in any dark room. I took her to the hospital. Faith was sedated. Daisy held her hand and promised to obey even when she didn't agree with the method. And the nurse adjusted a line and looked away because nurses know when a family is being stitched together without thread. When Faith woke and learned I'd paid, she reached for pride like a drowning person reaches for air, said she'd leave, tried to sit up. The nurse kept her down, Daisy cried, and Faith decided to live not for me, for her daughter, for the small person who had learned to carry far too much. Pattern interrupt. This was never about me. Maybe it never is. Days became a rhythm surgery scheduled. I came morning and night, brought fruit soup, a ridiculous parade of restaurant meals that made nurses smile. Daisy accused me of living at the hospital, asked if I was my mommy's boyfriend, announced she could accept me if I kept the food coming, and between her jokes, I tried again with Faith. Please let me be part of my daughter's life, I said. She deserves to know. I deserve the work. Faith stared with the judge's eyes and said, You're lucky you're allowed near her at all. She wasn't wrong. Then came the twist that flipped our house, not the paternity I feared, and hoped, not the diagnosis, not even the reunion at the peeling door. It came one afternoon after the surgery, when the beeping softened and the light in the room wasn't so harsh. Faith called Daisy over and said, That man is your father, and Daisy, God bless her steel, didn't squeal or sing. She squared up and wrote the terms. 3-month probation, impress us, or you're gone, and I nodded, because sometimes the jury is 7 and runs on cash and presents, not speeches. Stick around, because what happened next will blow your mind. Faith refused to move in with me at first, refused the good job I offered, said she wouldn't be in debt to the man who once turned love into a transaction. She got a waitress job with hours that ate her bones and pay that insulted her shoes. I brought breakfast and oversalted it, picked her up from work and kept my mouth shut. Bought a phone she hid in a wardrobe for a week. Because pride is a muscle, and muscles remember. I drove Daisy to school, learned her teacher's name, taught her to swim. We argued about sprinkles like the world hadn't tried to break us. And then the middle of our story cracked open with a second, harder twist. Faith sat Daisy down and asked about Silverline, about the food and medicine that kept appearing while she was sick, about the stories Daisy told, about a generous pastor, and Daisy, honest to the bone, said she'd been begging in secret for months, said she watched her mom vomit and cry and decided the street paid faster than prayers, said she was a hustler with bills because being 7 doesn't cancel rent. That was the twist, the one that knocked the wind out of me. Not that Daisy might be mine, but that she had been carrying us while I sat in glass rooms teaching men how to deploy capital. If you were me, would you forgive yourself, or would you sink in that moment and never stand up again? Faith cried, then the cry. Mothers bury under chores and worry. She told Daisy it was not her job to carry the world. At 7, that safety matters more than bread that lies even holy ones. Break something you don't feel until it rains. Daisy promised as much as a hustler can promise, then turned to me with a stare that could audit a soul. Daddy, fix it. So I asked again, move in with me, not to erase debt, but to draw a new line. A safe home, a school with windows that open, a room with a lamp shaped like a cloud. Faith said no, Daisy said pool TV, no landlord, mommy please. And that's how we ended up hauling 2 suitcases and a cracked dollhouse into a place with floors so shiny they looked like water. Daisy ran like blessing through the rooms, asked if the TV was as big as the wall, asked if Cinderella came with the bed, asked if princesses had chores. I knelt and told a lie. We tell to say I love you. Princesses don't work, they rest, and Faith sat in a corner, arms folded, eyes suspicious. a little bitter still and still. When Daisy laughed, something in her face softened, and you could see a door open an inch. Days lined up, and for once we actually kept our promises. I drove Daisy to school at 7:25, learned the security guard's name. We swam in the afternoons, burned pancakes, and named them Experimental. Faith watched like a lifeguard at a pool she didn't trust yet. Then she joined a movie one night. Daisy asked if we were getting married, and we choked on popcorn. We laughed. The kind of laugh you laugh when the hurt has faded but not vanished. We started telling small truths again. Faith told me about the scholarship that slipped away, the jobs, the nights she thought about giving Daisy up, but couldn't. Told me she forgave me long ago because anger is a backpack that gets heavier the longer you carry it. And I fell to my knees without thinking, said thank you for not ending the pregnancy, for raising our daughter, for being the kind of strong that doesn't brag. You know what I mean? Daisy kept score, like an auditor with glitter pens. She added points. When I showed up, took them away. When I got distracted, she rewarded dishwashing. School play attendance, no phone during her story about the mean girl with perfect braids. She announced that probation had been passed at sunrise one Saturday. Declared me officially dad with the exact tone she'd used to demand balance for an egg, no transfers. Strictly cash, which in our house means presents, not money. You think that's cheesy, simple, beneath serious men. Good for you, go enjoy your quiet calendar. The rest of us are learning drop-off routes and the magic of actually being there. One evening in the garden, the pool light painting slow ribbons on the ceiling of the covered patio. I asked Faith if we could try again. Not as apology theater, but as two people who'd survived different storms and landed on the same shore. She said yes, a quiet yes, that tasted like rain after dust. And a few months later, in a small courtyard with string lights and cheap flowers that looked expensive in soft light, we married Daisy, tossed petals like confetti from a better future, and tried to eat cake before vows. And for a second, it felt like a movie that ends the way it's supposed to. But that's not real life, not all the way. The ending that feels good in the chest still leaves questions that won't sit down. How much redemption should money buy? How much space should the world give a father who left and then returned with resources? How do we honor a mother's pride without punishing a child with scarcity? Where's the line between help and control, and who gets to draw it? Do you think Daisy should have needed to hustle at 7, or is her steal the reason we're a family today? Do you think Faith was right to forgive, or did she take a risk the world would have told her not to take? If it were you, what would you have done? Here's where I land on slow nights when the house is quiet and work emails go unread on purpose. The past doesn't vanish, but it doesn't get to drive forever. Apologies don't pay the whole bill daily, proof does, and the balance. Daisy asked me for that first day at the junction is still due every morning. Make breakfast, learn the homework app, sit in waiting rooms, show up when it's boring, show up when it's hard, show up when it costs you nothing, and when it costs you the meeting people said you couldn't miss. We didn't fix poverty with one move. We didn't fix every street where smart kids weigh danger against hunger with the same small hands. That's the part that keeps me up and sends me back out. Funding a clinic where we can sponsoring school fees quietly, not as headlines, but as balance. So talk to me. Talk to each other, to second chances. Belong only to people who can afford them, or to anyone brave enough to ask and stubborn enough to do the work. Should a man like me get to become a good father after being a bad one? Should a woman like Faith have to pick between pride and safety? Do you think that's fair? Drop your city in the comments. Argue with me if you need to tell me where you think the line is and who should draw it. And if you've ever stood in a moment where your past grabbed your shirt and said, "Pay up, share that story, somebody needs to hear it." If this hit you anywhere unexpected, like subscribe. Send it to that one friend who keeps you honest, because that's love too. And hey, next time you see a kid running through a crowd calling for help, what would you have done?